Okay, so for this video, I will show you some of the changes we did to the Thunder Dragon Snow deck I showed off about just a week ago for the TCG. We also went to locals this weekend. In Vienna, we have a pretty large locals, maybe 100 people, maybe a bit less than that. And it went pretty well. To show you also how this theory of the deck applies in practice, I will show you some high-rated Dueling Book replays I played in the last few days, explain some things, talk about my thought process and so on, and then also we can take a look at some nice interactions that come up. All of that good stuff. Let's talk about the deck list first. As always, I enjoy talking about the game plan first, so we understand the greater picture before we talk about the individual card choices and what we changed and so on. The game plan still stays the same in its core. We try to put Snow in the grave. That's why we play 60. We don't play 40. So we have more cards in the grave turn 1, sometimes 20, 30 cards even turn 1. We get this in the grave with Curious, but we added now Chaos Valkyria, which we'll get to in a second, to also get this in the grave more consistently if our Curious gets stopped. We abuse Snow with the Thunder Dragons, and we also abuse it with IP Masquerena as well as DPE, so we can destroy it on our opponent's turn and then use it 2 or even 3 times. Often they will think that your endboard doesn't really look that scary, but they don't think about how you can use Snow multiple times in one turn. I want to also give a huge thank you to everyone that contributed something to the comments section last video. A lot of nice suggestions. A lot of people suggested we play the Needle Fiber package with Yazi and Destrudo, so we could go for shooting Riser Dragon and dump the Snow in the grave even more consistently. Here's the problem that I found with it. We don't have enough extra space for this. Every card in this extra deck has some sort of important reason behind it. Even a card like Titan you need for the follow-up going first and then turn 3 to OTK them consistently. So there's just no space in the extra deck for it, and it also would change the entire game plan since we would need to play more tuners. Mostly if you get to Ravine and Destrudo, you are playing, and it's not the problem to get Snow in the grave because most of the time you're already winning at that point. Let's talk about what we've changed about the deck. Only really 3 big changes, maybe 4 big changes that really help the deck in my opinion. First one being Chaos Valkyria. So Chaos Valkyria, you can banish 1 light or dark, special summon this from the hand. If it's banished, you can send a light or dark monster from the deck to the grave, but you basically cannot use it that turn. So this can, when it's banished, you can put Snow in the grave. This is important because when your opponent stops your Curious turn 1, you want to have a second way to get your Snow in the grave, because Snow is obviously our win condition most of the time. You can get the Chaos Valkyria by discarding a dark monster with Chaos Space, or you can get it by banishing it with Gold Sarcophagus. If you already have access to your Thunder Dragons, you want to use your Gold Sarcophagus for the Chaos Valkyria to get your Snow. So it's basically becoming a foolish. We play 3 of this. We usually side 2 outpost siding because we don't want to run into lands here, but we still want 1 for the utility, especially when we draw Chaos Space. So that's pretty okay. I've liked the card so far. It's not really the make or break of the deck, but it is a nice option to have. And I think if you played, you have to play 3 in a 60 card version because you want to draw this really. We obviously cut the OG Thunder Dragon for it, so you need to sort of make up for the lack of light monsters. If you don't get to Curious turn 1, sometimes you don't even have a light monster on your follow-up turn with Chaos Creator. So that becomes a little bit annoying. Second thing we changed, we put Reasoning in here instead of Foolish Burial. I think with Chaos Valkyria being a deck, you don't really need Foolish as much anymore. Then you have too many ways to get to Snow almost. Reasoning is a good extender, right? I feel like every opponent will say level 4 for some reason, at least the ones I've played against. But level 4 is actually not really good because only our rocket monsters are level 4 as well as Snow. That's pretty much it. And special summoning any danger or any extender is usually very fine, and summoning a Thunder Dragon is obviously amazing. Third thing we changed is putting the Dark Charmer Gloomy in the extra deck. This card is absolutely nuts. Like, it's insane how much this deck can abuse this card. I think it's similar as in Dragon Link, where if you go second, this card is crazy. You can put out their Anaconda, you can get their Array out of the grave, you can put their Dragoon. I recently summoned a Dragoon out of the grave. It's actually nuts. It has multiple utilities. You can crash into your opponent's monster, search a Hydra land out of the deck, which it's nuts. Dark is crazy. You have to play this. I even cut the Nightmare Phoenix for it because it's just that necessary. And then the fourth one. This is kind of sus, I know. Frightful Patchwork. So, okay, here's the thing. I thought about that we need another power spell in this deck. We need more ways if we go second to break boards. If you play in a tournament like OICS, this is probably not a viable option. If you expect to play a lot of Scythe decks, this is not the way to go. You need more outs to Scythe. I usually played Super Poly previously, but if you go to locals, like I did, or you play in a tournament where you don't think everyone will play a Scythe deck, this card is absolutely crazy. Let's talk about why. Guardian Chimera is a newly released fusion monster from Battle of Chaos. It needs 3 monsters with different names. If it's fusion summoned by a spell, card, or effect, you can draw cards equal to the number of cards used as material from the hand, and if you do, destroy cards your opponent controls equal to the number of cards used from the field. Also, very important, while polymerization is in your grave, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. So you side in the Frightful package, go in second, with the 2 polymerization, with the 1 Edgem Sabers. Then you activate Poly, you use 2 from your hand, 1 from your field, maybe a Thunder Dragon or a Baby Dragon. Then you chain block the Chimera, so your opponent cannot negate it with something like Baroness or Savage Dragon. And they cannot target it with something like Impam, Veiler, or Shishao. And this destroys non-target, it draws you cards, you get rid of the cards you don't need, you get rid of Bricks and Gamma, draw more cards, and destroys cards in the process. Like, I tell you, this card is everything you need when you go second versus any deck that is not playing Scythe, because obviously this engine doesn't do anything versus the Scythe lock. And you only play 9 cards post-siding versus the Scythe lock, which is obviously not enough if you want to like do this over multiple tournament rounds. This does still well in a somewhat competitive environment, and I have won versus a Scythe lock deck as well. It's not like you cannot win, it's just that it becomes a bit more difficult. Also, the Edgem Sabers acts as an extender in the grave later on. Hard drawing the polymerization is alright, because you can still go for the Chimera. It's obviously not as good, you don't get the +1 from Fight for Patchwork, but it's still alright. So yeah, I play against a lot of Striker recently. I think a lot of people are on Striker, Sword Soul, for example, also Tri-Brigade. All of these decks, you don't really want a non-engine card. That doesn't really work with your deck going second. But against all of these decks, you want a card that just gives you a lot of power that they have to negate if you go second. Basically, just add 3 more power spells to somewhat semi-power spells, I would even call that, and 1 brick. Is it worth it to side 6 cards for that? I don't know yet. I have to test this more, but let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section. I can already tell a lot of you are probably going to be very skeptical about this. I am myself, so it's not like that, but I am really liking it so far, and it's just super fun to play around with. Like this feels very similar to Resolving Legionnaire, but sometimes even better because you can even draw cards in the process. So everything else we've already discussed in the last video. I don't want to drag this for an infinite amount of time. I think all the information you need you can get from the last video. Let's look together at another 2 replays to see what this deck really does in practice. For Dueling Book, we obviously unfortunately have to do the commentary on the replays after we played them. We cannot do it live because on GB it would just take hours, right? So we win the die roll versus our good friend Jerome. Maybe it's Destiny, you probably know him. He's featured often on the DB Grinder channel, always plays Dragon Link. We open Collab Serpent, Teleport, Tracer, Dark Beckoning Beast, Boot Sector launch. We win the die roll. So this hand is good. You know, we have a starter, an extender, and even, funnily enough, Boot Sector with Tracer. So usually Boot Sector drawing is not really that good, but if we draw it with Tracer, it becomes an extender as well. So we normal summon the Dark Beckoning Beast. We see they open a 1-hand trap, but it doesn't really matter for us because obviously we don't know that if we go first. We add the opening of the Spirit Gates, we add the Chaos Summoning Beast, and we do our usual stuff. The reason I use the Emergency Teleport before reborning the Chaos Summoning Beast is because this doesn't play into Nibiru as much. We can make Curious before our 5th summon, so there's a nice interaction you want to know about when you open Teleport, plus your opening of the Spirit Gates. Definitely summon out the Frankenderp first. So Frankenderp draws us a card. We draw... What do we draw? Dragon Dark. Dragon Dark we do reveal and keep in our hand. We could also think about putting this to the bottom and have an additional draw on the next turn, but having this in hand is reasonably nice because we can discard this even with the opening of the Spirit Gates to get back our Chaos Summoning Beast, and this of course gets us more Chaos Monsters for Snow, which we will dump in the grave with Curious. So now we will go for Curious, and even if they had Nib at this point it would be useless. Even if they would use the Nibiru, we would get more advantage from it because the Curious gets us any card from the grave. We can put back a Teleport or something, get an extender, still go for Anaconda, still go for IP if we have the right card in our hand to extend. So at this point, the Nibiru is already pretty whack. So we mill 3 cards. One of the issues I've faced with the deck as well is obviously milling your Destiny heroes with either Chaos Ruler or Curious, but it's just something you can... You cannot really do anything about it. You have to play the DPE engine. It's way too good, especially with Snow, but also just as a standalone engine, especially with a deck like this that can just pump out monsters so easily. We use Snow, we banish the Dragon Dark, we add the Dragon Hawk from our deck to our hand, we go into Apollosa, we use Boot Sector, summon out the Tracer, use Tracer, and go into Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler will mill us 5 cards. We mill the Hydrolander, which that's something really good about the deck. If you play 3 Hydrolander, you just mill them quite regularly off the Chaos Ruler. We use the Hawk to get back our Dragon Dark, go for IP Masquerena, go for Collapse Serpent, go for Striker Dragon, just so we have an additional body in our graveyard for the snow. Then we use Collapse Serpent, get the Wyver Burster to our hand. We can special summon the Wyver Burster and go for Anaconda. Special the Hydrolander. So one of the things I was thinking about is maybe we could have held the Hydrolander to play around something like Impermanence or Gamma plus Nibiru. I know that maybe its Destiny was on Dragon Link. He's always on Dragon Link. And Dragon Link likes to play Nibiru. So, you know, maybe there was an argument to not play greedy and keep the Hydrolander. But then on the other hand, if he has a crazy engine hand, our end board can be broken sometimes. So we kind of wanted the additional power, and Hydrolander just gets a small card in the grave for snow as well, and we only have had 16 at this point, which sounds already like a lot, but for our snow, if you want to resolve it like 2 to 3 times, not really that much. We use Hydrolander in the end phase just to get some more cards in the grave. We mill Roar and Thunder Dragon Fusion, which is of course super good, because we can banish them with snow in the opponent's turn. It's their turn. They open with Chaos Space, discarding Destrudo. I think this is fine for us. They will normal summon their Chamber Dragon Mate. I will actually negate this with Apollosa. The reason is that if they have Ravine, they will get to Ravine at some point, right? And then they can discard the trap later on and extend with that Chamber Dragon Mate. So I didn't really want any of this to happen, so I just didn't want them to get the +1, which will lead into more pluses later on. And trading it with an Apollosa negate is totally fine. They will Ghost Ogre the Apollosa though, so it was reasonably well played by them. They add the Tiding, which that's fine. On the resolution, I actually used Snow, and this was probably maybe a bit bad even. Let me actually think about this. So if we use Snow here, they have to use Droplet if they have it, right? They would have to get rid of 4 cards, because they would have to negate every single one probably. So I put them on having Quick Launch, a quick spell, plus Droplet, so they could use the Quick Launch, chain their Droplet, get rid of everything except for the Chamber Dragon Mate maybe, and use Quick Launch, and then get their plays going. So it was a bit greedy played by me, so that's also something we can learn from here. Probably not should have not activated the Snow so carelessly, but maybe should have gone for DPE or Hydrolander or something like that. I think the thing is, if they don't have Droplet, we instantly win, because we can use Snow 3 times this turn, as well as IP and DPE and Hydrolander. So it's like 7 interruptions or something still that are on the field here. Snow is just that crazy. We use Hydrolander on the summon of the Tracer, and they just scoops. Because, like I said, if they don't have Droplet, they just never playing through that. Game 2, we obviously go second. Our hand is Dark Beckoning Beast, Droplet, Gamma, Boot Sector, Quick Launch. So, because we open Gamma with Droplet, we have... There is a thing we can think about where we would hold the Gamma for our turn because we have Droplet in the hand. Because we could use a power spell like Quick Launch, which they would maybe negate, then chain Gamma, then negate it with Savage, and then we chain Droplet to get infinite value out of it. But it is kind of a gamble. I think it is what I wanted to go for. But as in a second, you will see that they actually put the Gamma back to our deck with Levianeer, which is kind of unfortunate. That makes our starting hand a lot worse. They go for Zombie Vampire, and see, this is the reason why I don't really like the Zombie Vampire in general. They mill our Edgem Sabers, which is just an extender for free for us, and they get Alancia, which is fine, but you know, you're not guaranteed to get anything good of it. Even if you mill a couple of cards and it's good for your deck, I feel like there are other ways to mill cards that are also reasonably fine. We draw Celestial, perfect draw. It's exactly what we wanted to see, of course. And we start with Quick Launch, I suppose. Yeah, with Quick Launch, they think about it, they don't negate it. We don't chain Droplet because we want to wait a bit and not immediately use it there. We go Dark Beckoning Beast. We add the opening of the Spirit Gates. We activate the opening of the Spirit Gates. They will attempt to negate it. However, we chain Droplet. Here's a question for everyone. Would you discard 1 or 2 cards here? I chose to discard only 1. Spoiler alert, because they will chain their Tiding to get rid of their Savage. And I knew that they could also chain Lancia then. So our Droplet was not going to be good anyway. So that's why I actually chose to only do 1. But I think they actually misplayed here, because what they could have done was chain the Lancia to the Tiding as well. But they kind of forgot about it, I think. So they bounced the Tracer. They negated our opening of the Spirit Gates. So at this point, we're just super lucky because we have the Boot Sector. So that's our way of extending, and you will see how crazy this will actually be. We summon the Tracer, we summon 1 out of deck, we go for Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler gets us everything. Do we get an Insane Mill? Kind of, right? We get the Collapse Serpent. So we summon the Collapse Serpent. We go for Dark, which you will see how crazy Dark is. They think about they have Cold by the Grave, but they're not going to use it quite here. Wyverburster, we're going to use the Dark to get their Levianeer, I suppose. Exactly, go for Curious with Levianeer because it's a Dragon, Spellcaster, and Fiend, I believe. We use the Curious to get our Snow in the grave. We mill 3 additional cards, it doesn't really matter. We use Snow, they use Cold by the Grave. We chain Snow. So it's also crazy about Snow, right? You can just use it multiple times. Then we go for Access Code for 3, and they just scoop basically because we could special summon out the Chaos Ruler as well, or the Wyverburster. And we sort of had the gamble effect, of course, that they didn't have Nibiru, because if they had that, we would have obviously lost. So this just goes to show how crazy Snow of a card is, and we basically broke with Droplet, of course, so you have to keep that in mind, but we also only had 4 cards, and 2 of them were bricks. We broke through Tidying, Cold by the Grave, Savage Dragon, and Lancia, even though they misplayed a bit, but I think it still goes to show how good this deck can be if you go second with a lot of power spells. This one is interesting. I feel it was a good game versus Sword Soul, but we both did some misplays here and there. I think it's always nice to show off some replays where we can all learn something from them. Nothing was played perfectly. There are plays you can think about more, whether or not you could have done something better or not. We go first, we open the Dream combo, Chaos Space Roar, with Tsushinoko, Chaos Summoning Beast Droplet, so we open 1 break, which is not too good, but it's fine, right? We pitch the Dragon Roar. Often people will just not ash these Chaos Spaces, maybe a bit more because you play 60, but often not because they're afraid of Gamma. So you will see what the standard sort of Wyverburster combo with Dragon Roar is. We go for the usual plays, right? We add Collapse Serpent, we go for Chaos Space, we go for Romulus, we add Dragon Ravine, we add Wyverburster. We go for Teleport, which we drew off the Chaos Space. We go for Frankenderp. We draw Gamma, which is fine because at this point we just want a lot of cards in our hand because we need a lot of cards with Dragon Ravine. Advantage helps even with Snow on the opponent's turn. So there are a couple of things we could do. We could go for Appaloosa here just to play around the potential nip, right? If they were greedy and they wouldn't really... They would want to wait for Curious or a potential Curious to come down. We could Appaloosa preemptively, but I think we're not going to get to Curious at that point. So rather we just want to extend a bit more. Also because we're confident that if they will Nibiru us on the Tsushinoko summon before we summon Curious, we can still go for a Chaos Ruler because we have Boot Sector as well as Tracer in the hand. And then this will still facilitate probably Anaconda with IP, with Droplet in our hand as well. So they imperm the Curious, which that's okay for us. We use the Dragon Dark to get our Dragon Hawk, and now we use Boot Sector to use the Tracer, special summon the Recharger, use Chaos Ruler, and because we're so good, we actually mill the Chaos Valkyria. We mill the Dasher as well, but you know, it sucks. It is what it is. Usually I would take the DPE target with Chaos Ruler, so often just Chaos Ruler becomes like mill 4 cards and add the brick that you need for your combo. In this scenario specifically, I had sort of accepted that we lose to Droplet, right? Because they impermed our Curious to get the Snow in the Grave preemptively. I sort of accepted that, but also because we also had Droplet in our hand, I was a bit more confident, because if they Droplet our Snow, we can Droplet one of their monsters, getting rid of our Snow, and use Snow once again. So actually, even though we don't really have proof versus Droplet, we kind of have it with Droplet ourselves, so Droplet. We actually summoned back the Dragon War with Dragon Hawk, so we can also use it with IP Masquerena if we need to. We don't really get to DP, of course, because we have the Dasher in the grave already, and they start with Vishuda, which Vishuda I will actually let go through in this scenario, because I already accepted that if they have Droplet, it's probably going to be a very tough game for us, so I just play super hard as if they don't have Droplet. I play the most greedy game ever, so I go for Snow here already. So I book their monster face down, because if they don't have Droplet, this is by far the best play, because this gets rid of their Vishuda entirely without having to waste our Appaloosa negates, and so we can obviously use 2 more times this turn, even though probably just 1 more time, right, because we don't really have the grave for it. But in theory, you could use it 2 more times, and we also use Hawk to shuffle back a couple of cards that we don't need to draw more. So they special their Ecclesia, they normal their death spot. At this point, I was very confident that we would just win. They go for the battle phase, which I thought about quite a lot. If we want to let this go through, maybe go for Unicorn preemptively, but I just let it go through. There wasn't really a point of activating the IP and potentially letting them play in the main phase 1 and the OTKing us, because I think our grind game was incredibly good, so I just wanted to get over with the battle phase. I prioritized that over having our IP on the board. We draw Celestial, of course, once again, the best draw in our deck. And at this point, we can even, that's funny, sometimes you can discard the Celestial now, and on the following turn, you would have the Celestial effect live, because you could banish it with the Dasher, even though you never use DP, which is pretty funny. We use a Roar, we use Unicorn, and at this point, they just scoop. They go first. Next game, we open Gamma, Fusion, Token Collector, Patchwork, Edgem Saber. So we started in the Patchwork, but as you can see, if you draw the Edgem Sabers, Patchwork is dead. So this happened to me quite a lot also at the locals tournament, right? Where you play the Patchwork and even in 60 cards, you will open the brick with it. And not only do you draw the brick, you also draw the combo card with it. So I just skipped through that, sorry. They basically were able to out our Token Collector. We used Gamma on the Yazi. They had to pass, but we didn't have any plays, so we had to pass. So it's basically a brick from our side, right? And this will happen with the deck as well, where you just won't have any plays. And this will happen like maybe every 1 out of 10 games. And also this happened at locals. It was the one match I lost in the Swiss rounds where Game 3, I just couldn't play at all. Like, I just didn't have any plays. They go Ashina. They have to play around the Token Collector, and this is why Token Collector, I love it so much. Like, I would always play this in the side deck, even now versus Sword Soul. It's just too freaking good. Even in the follow-up, they cannot go for any real plays. So they have to go for a very suboptimal route here, where they go Yazi, and they summon back the Altara with the Summit. And they go for Draco Berserker. This would have been easy to break, of course, but we draw Token Collector, so we just have to scoop. Game 3, however, will be a lot more interesting. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. We open Gamma, Dark Beckoning Beast, Nessie, Chaos Summoning Beast, Tracer. This hand only has 2 plays, really. We have Nessie and we have Dark Beckoning Beast. If they imperm our Dark Beckoning Beast, which a lot of people will not even do, because they're scared of you extending and getting 3 bodies on board and just go for Curious anyway, so they just hold it, like we saw in the other replays. But if they were to go for that, we could just go for DPE, or depending on what we draw, we could extend. They will let that go through. At the opening of the Spirit Gates, we already have the Chaos Summoning Beast, so I was kind of hoping they would ash the opening of the Spirit Gates. Never happens. But we discard the Nessie, also nicest interaction, right? We can discard the Nessie, get our Reborn, but also get a Danger Monster from the deck to the hand. And this, we go for Anima, go for Curious, our standard play. We mill the Snow, we mill 3 cards, we mill the Celestial, which, once again, we cannot go for DPE this time around. But this will happen. Like, this is just one of the trade-offs you have to take. And really, it's only bad when you mill it with the Curious. It's already that bad when you mill it with Chaos Ruler, because you can still add it to your hand. Funny thing I realized later on in this game is that you could also banish the Chaos Valkyria to get Dasher in the grave to get a follow-up on the following turn, because you already have Celestial. So I think that was just kind of neat. We go for Apollosa, we banish 7 to summon out the Snow, Chaos Valkyria, and Dragon Dark will trigger. We add the Dragon Hawk, we mill the Dragon Roar, which in hindsight, this should have been the Dasher, but we just didn't see the play, I think, at that moment. We go for IP and we pass. So this hand was kind of terrible, not gonna lie, but we have follow-up. So in case they didn't open too well, or they didn't open Droplet, it's reasonably alright. The problem is we can only activate Snow once because we don't have enough grave setup. As you can see, the Dark Beckoning Beast engine, as standalone, 1 card, only does Curious. It doesn't really do anything else. So that's why it's not an engine that sees a ton of play in the TCG, or has seen a ton of play, because on its own, it doesn't do enough, right? You need other cards in order for it to work out. And that's one of the examples, right? Just Apollosa IP. I mean, with DP, this would have been a lot better if we wouldn't have milled the Celestial as well. That was kind of unfortunate, but still, that is just something we want to keep in mind. You usually need to have like 2 to 3 card combos in this deck, which is not the hardest thing to do, but it's just sometimes, of course, it happens. They open Vishuddha, which that is very scary for us. I think we just go Snow in this case and summon it back. We keep the Celestial in the grave in order for us to be able to put the Dasher in the grave later on. I think this was maybe... I don't know. We should have just milled the Dasher in the first place instead of Roar, just to get the follow-up. So this would actually matter more. And then we could banish 1 from our hand as well. So we could keep the Dasher and the Celestial in the grave. But I do a mistake here. I do actually quite a mistake here, in my opinion. I was very greedy in that I use Dark, I use Hawk, I use Snow, and I add the Thunder Dragon Fusion. And now, you know what I'm trying to do? I was so scared of them having a lot of gas because they didn't open any hand traps. They didn't hand trap us at all. So I was worried about them having like 3 10E monsters with Ecclesia and Moye and stuff. So they would probably break through our board. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to shuffle all my 4 cards in the hand to the deck and draw a token collector. It's basically, I just went for the RNG, I think. Yeah, but we didn't draw it. So, and we even got punished with all the Fusion Destiny. Our Boot Sector with Tracer is okay, but it's not really that good. They summon out the Ashuna, which they actually have all 10E monsters, right? And Moye, but they don't have Ecclesia. So the token collector would have been insane, but I think we would have been good regardless if we would have just kept our hand and played it a bit more safe. We go for a Unicorn, we discard, we shuffle back the Ashuna. When they revealed the Atara, I was pretty annoyed already. Having all 3 names kind of annoying, but the fact that we booked this and shuffled the other one back, Atara itself doesn't really do a lot. But the thing here is that I am forced to book this down with Snow once again. Because if they have Vessel in the hand, we instantly lose. Because all the interruption we used earlier, it just didn't do anything, basically. Oh, that's what we did. We actually used Apollosa on the hand effect. It's the same outcome. It just makes it so they have to use the normal summon on the Atara. And now what I was thinking is, if they use the normal summon on the Atara, we have to book it with Snow. They used Moye, so they don't use the effect. They just want to crash over the Apollosa, but we use Snow here now, right? We banished the Celestial. We banished almost everything we're kind of forced to. So use the Snow a second time, and now they have 2 face-down monsters. We don't really have good follow-up, except for Tracer, and we can go for Chaos Ruler. I was quite confident, you know, maybe if we draw something, if we mill something playable with the Chaos Ruler, this could still be good. We could add a Orbital Hydrolander, maybe a Chaos Valkyria or something, and go for additional plays. But from what I believe, our mill was pretty bad. We mill only Tracer and Gamma. It's not really the best. We already normal summoned, and we put the Boot Sector back, so... yeah, Droplet is maybe going to be kind of okay, but there was not really any other play we could go for, so we just have to attack. I attacked the Vishuda. The Vishuda, if they flip it, they can go for Monk, and then they can use the Vishuda in the grave and summon out the Atara, so this just becomes very, very annoying. So we just attack that and set the Droplet and hope for the best. They go for Atara, which they can, because even if they control a face-down monster, they can do that. We use the Apollosa because we have to hope that they don't have any other way to extend into a 10E monster. Because if they're able to resolve the Vishuda, it's pretty much game over from my perspective. The Chaos Ruler was nice because we got more cards in our graveyard to use the Snow again as well. They go for normal summon Atara, bring out the Monk, use the Vishuda probably to bounce the Droplet to our hand, get the Vishuda, use Atara, go into Shaman of the 10E, use that effect to get out the Monk from the grave, use Summit to get out Moye. So they get their place going, right? They have something going. They even can draw a card with the Moye. Draw another Moye. Very unfortunate for them. But I think we were both very unlucky in this game. We normal summon the Tracer. We activate the Gold Sarcophagus, which they cannot ash that. We use Droplet to get rid of our Gold Sarcophagus to negate the 10E. So Gold Sarcophagus was obviously a very good, I thought initially a very good top deck, but we actually used all of our Thunder Dragons already. So yeah, it didn't really do anything. We used the Chaos Valkyria though to mill the Roar in the grave that we have in the deck. We had a Roar in the deck, but we didn't have any other Thunder Dragons. We go into Dark. So Dark can summon their Vishuda. Usually against Sword Soul, this card is kind of dead, but in this case, it worked out very, very well. We summoned back their Vishuda. We summoned back our Chaos Ruler. So here's the deal. I forgot something. I forgot that the 10E was also halved by Droplet. So what I wanted to do is crash into the Draco Berserker, get our Hydrolander, and basically win from there. I played it in a way where we would have exactly 5 monsters with different names in our grave. So I wanted to crash into it, but then I realized, or rather my opponent made me realize, that their monster is actually halved. So we attack into that, we put it in the grave first, we take the damage, but then it turns out, yeah, that monster is actually halved. So, but it's not even that bad, because we were able to out their entire board and go for Anaconda. And I think it's the first time in like 60, 70 games that I've played with this deck so far, maybe 80 or more, to go for Thunder Dragon Fusion with Anaconda. It doesn't never happen because you always go for DP. But in this case, it was very good. Gives us follow-up, gives us Thunder Dragon monsters back in the deck, gives us additional card in the grave, gives us a huge monster that they have to go over. They normal summon Moye, they use the effect, we go for Snow in the grave. Dude, we even banished their Vishuda. How crazy is that? That's also something like sometimes you want to even get their DPE or their Celestial from the grave with Dark, and then just banish it and use Snow as an extender on your turn. Just banish it, and basically it works like a DD Crow, but also gives you a card for Snow. So Snow is just so insane, man. And Dark as well. They're both so crazy. We go for opening of the Spirit Gates. They use Lancia, so we can't use Fusion. We just attack over everything. We attack directly with Titan. We cannot go for any OTK or anything. We normal summon the Dragon Dog over any monster. It doesn't matter. And we go for access code. Use the Dragon Dog. Get our Dragon Hawk, which we shuffled back with Thunder Dragon Fusion. We use it to get Dragon Roar. And all of this we just do to get more cards in the grave for Snow. And then now we have Snow in the grave, and they have no follow-up basically. Or they had one play, but we had Snow and we have access code on the field. So how many times did we use Snow this match? I think maybe, or this game rather, maybe 5 times. So you can see just, like, if they don't have Droplet, Snow, it just gets you through these games. Like, usually we would never have been able to win this game, but it just gets you through it so well. Alright, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. I like talking about this deck so much, right? I'm having so much fun in the TCG, I think more than ever basically. Being able to use Snow with Thunder Dragons just warms my heart. Let me know, once again, what are your thoughts on the deck in the comment section down below. Have you had any success? I've seen people here and there try it out at their locals having success with it. So cool to see. Anyway, I'll see you very, very soon in the next video, and I hope you loved it. See you.